Welcome to Digitally Creative. I'm your host, Vincent Ferrari, and joining me this week is a maker and a podcast host and someone who's one of the head high muckety mucks of Instructables. She'll deny it, but she is, and we all know it. I have the one and only Jessy Ratfink on this week. Hi, Jessy. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. A little nervous, but good.
I love that you're a little bit nervous, and you are the co-host of a podcast. So
I
it's
I
like,
still haven't gotten used to it. It's still really bizarre. Like sometimes I'll be browsing YouTube on our TV in the living room and like our podcasts will pop up and I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm on the screen." I just can't handle it. It's real weird.
I had the same thing when I started doing this show on YouTube because in the initial run of this podcast, when it was Because We Make, we only did the audio version of the show.
Mhm.
And when I started doing video, it was like looking at myself the first few episodes. I'm like, oh, you don't look at the camera. Like you're not doing
Yep.
anything correctly. Like everything's wrong. And eventually you kind of get a feel for it. Like, at least when you're talking, look at the
Mhm.
camera. So it's like,
I'm
it's,
I'm still bad at that. I have to admit, like, when I watch it back to pull reels, I'll
Mhm.
see myself and I'm, like, looking this way and that like, I'm looking everywhere, but
You're
at the
doing
camera
memes. You're making
yeah,
memes.
it's hard. It's just I don't know, my
Mhm.
corners are really interesting, I guess.
It was when you were on the first time with Grant, I think you were on with Grant and Adam, I think the first time. Morley
Morley
might have
was
been
there
there.
too, yeah, it was, like,
Okay.
episode 36, it was
It was
really
very
early.
early, it was in their first year, and I remember thinking it's very funny because I remember thinking like, "Wow, she sounds like she just kinda fits right in, like, if she wanted to just sit in there and just do this gig with them, it would work." So when Grant and Adam started looking for a new co-host, Grant messaged me one night. We were talking. I said, how's the search for a new co-host going? And he said, we found a person. He goes, and I won't tell you who it is. He goes, this is what he told me. He goes, I won't tell you who it is, but if you guess it, I will confirm it if you guess correctly. I was like, oh. I said, do I get a hint of any kind? He goes, former guest. And
That's still a huge pull.
I swear to you, and you can check with Grant, he will tell you this is the truth. I picked you immediately. You were the first choice.
Hey.
And I was
It's
like, "Oh, it's."
exciting.
That's what I said, "Oh, you got Jesse." And he goes, "Yeah." Like he was kind of surprised that I guessed it that quick. I said this. I said the chemistry that you guys had together was really, really good. It felt natural. The conversation didn't stall out in the middle, which, sometimes it happens with guests. It's not a bad thing.
Mhm.
It's just, the natural interaction of someone you're not interacting with all the time. But
Yeah.
you guys had really good chemistry then, and it's only gotten better since you became a co-host on the show. So, a couple of questions. So, the first one is, how did it feel when Grant said, "Hey, would you like to be a co-host?" And how much convincing did he have to do? And B, how are you enjoying being a co-host?
So basically, he asked me in Instagram DMs if I would be interested. And typically, this would be something that I would talk myself out of.
Mhm.
I'm not comfortable on camera. I have like really bad imposter syndrome. So it probably would have been something like 5 years ago that I would have been like, no, I can't, I'm terrified. But I just said
Mhm.
yes immediately, which is really weird for me, but I'm in therapy and I'm trying new things, so it was just like, let's just go for it because the only thing that might happen is that I suck at it and I just don't do it anymore. So
Mhm.
yeah, and as far as how I'm feeling, better, but still very nervous.
Okay.
Uh, it's Video is just very strange to me because like it's just out there and it just
Mhm.
lives there and you can't go back and make edits because I'm very used to doing a lot of text stuff. And so it's like, I can always reassure myself, well, if I don't do that great, I'll just go back and edit. You can't really do that with this, but it's kind of been nice not being the person in charge. Like
Mhm.
Grant is like our ringleader over there. So it's nice to kind of just sit back and go with it and yeah, not have to do a ton of planning or worrying now. Like I really worried at first, but I feel like I've gotten a little more relaxed about it.
Well,
But yeah.
that is something I was thinking about because your job at Instructables, you're not like quote on camera.
Hmm.
You're semi behind the scenes. I won't say behind the
Oh
scenes
yeah.
because but what the work you put out is either photography of actual items and work or it's
Mhm.
text. It's not,
Yep.
"Hi, look at me," which is there
Yeah.
is a certain amount of that in podcasting where if you're not comfortable doing that, it's really hard to get comfortable doing that, where it's like,
Mhm.
"Oh, I'm the center of attention for a minute, and I don't really like it, and I'm not used to it."
Yeah. Yeah, and I never like it, like, I'm always the person, like, at parties hanging out with the dog in the corner, like, I don't wanna be the center of attention ever, so it's definitely had I've just gotten a little nervous sometimes, like, I'll be talking,
Mhm.
and I'll just be like, "Do I even know what I'm saying anymore? Like, is this even English?" Like, I just get really panicked sometimes in the middle of long tangents still.
The worst, especially when you have co-hosts, like, and you have 2 of them, so it's even harder. Like, when I had a co-host, I had Ethan, and then later on I had Brooke, and when I had a co-host, I would be talking, and at some point I'd be like, "Are they being polite and giving me space? Have they lost their internet connection? Or is this like, are they falling asleep?" Like, you never know, like, where's the balance in there? Like, are we still having a conversation? Am I boring you to tears? Like, you don't know, and you kinda just have to just go, "I'm doing the best I can, and it's just gonna have to
Yep.
work out." But you guys have hit a good stride. I think the initial transition of having you join, usually when somebody comes in, it disrupts things, and there wasn't like that speed bump when you joined the show.
Yeah.
It was just kinda like you just kinda slid into the seat just like I kind of expected you to, and it was like, "Oh, yeah, Jesse's a co-host now."
Yeah, I'm still surprised. It's still very weird. Like, my mom will call me and be like, "Oh, I heard on the podcast this week," and I'm like, "Oh my god, I
My
am
mom's
doing that.
listening to
Oh no."
podcasts.
Yeah. It's just, oh my gosh, it's very strange. And like people that I knew from high school, like, "Oh my god, you're famous now." Like, I don't know about that, guys.
Oh,
I'm not sure. I'm just on the internet.
the best is you get random messages, like, somebody be like, "I saw you on Spotify." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
just there." Like, it's just a thing. It just happens.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, God, at least I have, like, some experience with that, with Instructables, because, like, I did get shared in weird places back in the day, and so at
Mhm.
least that's not entirely new, it's just everything else is.
Let's talk about for a second because we've talked about obviously, we're talking about we've never mentioned actually mentioned Grant, Adam, and Morley, but never mentioned that Clamp
Mhm.
is the podcast you're a co-host of.
Yep,
But besides from being the co-host of Clamp, you work at, Autodesk for Instructables.
mhm. Yep,
And
Instructables and Tinkercad now these days.
oh, you work at I didn't realize that you work
Mhm.
for Tinkercad also. See,
Yep.
Ti I always as someone who I always felt like Tinkercad, people kinda gave it a bad rap. Like, they don't realize the power of it because it's so obvious what you can do, but it's
Mhm.
also, like, it requires a little bit of creative thinking to really make it do some things.
Yeah, a
But
lot of creative thinking, yeah.
I've heard from a lot of people who have no ability to do anything in Fusion 360 that can sit there and do some crazy things in
Mhm.
Tinkercad. It's one of the craziest little programs that ever existed. And it wasn't
Yeah.
always Autodesk, right? It was an independent thing, and then
Yeah,
it became Autodesk
I
bought
think
them.
yeah, 2011, 2012,
Sound
2013, somewhere in
Yeah,
there.
sounds
Yeah,
about
because
right,
we
yeah.
used to have 123D and then
Mhm.
Tinkercad replaced 123D. Yeah, yeah, I'm so happy that we have like so the Instructables community team basically started working with Tinkercad and now we're officially part of the team so that we
Perfect.
can do videos and blog posts and all this stuff and sort of get the word out about all the cool things it can do because I mean right now the ISTE education conference is happening in Philadelphia and so a
Mhm.
lot of the team is there and it's like every time I've worked that, people do not know that we have circuits. They don't know that we have any sort of code block program. Like they
The
don't know half the
circuits
stuff that we can do.
The
So it's
circuits are
crazy.
such a cool that is one of the coolest functions
Mhm.
that when it was added, I was like, "Oh my god, that's amazing." Like, granted, it's never gonna be the same as, like, having a breadboard in front of you and putting components down,
Yeah.
but if you're just prototyping something, just trying to see, "Hey, would this work?" You can
Mhm.
go pretty far. You can go
Yeah,
pretty
you
far with
really
what's built
can.
in. So, what do you do specifically for Autodesk and for Instructables and for Tinkercad. So get a better idea of what your day job looks like because we know the cool stuff you make at night, which if you're watching on video, you probably should be watching on video because I actually see one of those embroidery hoops is I am literally containing myself from laughing at it. It's the one with the cat and it says Friday the 13th.
Oh, yeah. I
I
love him.
love that one. But just before before we go too far into that, why don't you tell people a little bit about your day job and what you do?
Sure. So I do community management and social media, I guess, kind of marketing.
Mhm.
Uh, Everything, though, for us is organic. We don't do any paid marketing. So it's most of my day, honestly, is spent drafting up social media posts or editing blog posts or making videos. So yeah, a lot of my day is taken up with making creative stuff, but it's all digital. I don't really do anything physical anymore. For the last couple months, it's been all Tinkercad Sim Lab because that's like our newest environment that we released in the 3D editor, which is kind of like physics plus materials. So, you can do a little bit more with it now. So, I've been making a lot of videos about that. And then, of course, our contests. We don't have too many people doing it. There's like three of us that look through every single contest entry. Like this week for the yard is closing. So we've got to go through all of those and pick finalists
That
and then judge
that
those
blew
contests.
that blew my mind because you mentioned that on Clamp in one episode. I forgot what we were all taught. What we, haha, we, because I was there.
I do
Um,
that too.
what you guys were talking about, and you mentioned that like there's such a small team that review all
Hmm.
the contest entries, and I'm like, how is that possible? Like, I can only imagine what the volume looks like, and to have such a small group of people reviewing it all, like, I'd be terrified.
And it is tough and kind of scary, yeah, because I don't know. I think I take it way too seriously, but that's probably a good thing.
It's a
But
very
for
good thing.
me, I get so worried about making sure every entry gets a good look
Mhm.
because sometimes people are not good with their presentation, but the actual project is super solid and really interesting, and it might be something totally new that we've not seen, but like their introduction isn't great and their main
Mhm.
image isn't great, and it might be something that we would just pass over if we didn't read it deep enough.
Right.
So yeah, it eats up a lot of time. It's better than it used to be, but just because we've cut back on the contests a bit, we used to do like 8 a month, and we're going a lot slower than that now
I was
because
actually
that
wondering
was crazy.
I was wondering because you got contests have been a big part of Instructables for a long time, and I've always wondered
Hmm.
this, and now that I have you here, captive audience, I can ask the hard-hitting questions, but
Yeah.
the thing I've always wondered is, do you have I don't know how to phrase this, so I'm just gonna kinda ask it, it should make
Mhm.
sense. Do you have experts that review the projects to make sure they're feasible and are not dangerous or potentially harmful? Like, for example, if somebody designs a chair and they hold it together with thumbtacks, right? Is there somebody that's a woodworker that goes, "That's probably a dumb idea?" Like, oh, because like, there's I know a lot of things, but I don't know everything about everything. So,
Mhm.
how do you guys vet the projects at all that people submit in the contest or for the site? Like, how does that
Yes.
work?
We do vet them. Every contest entry is looked at by one of us.
Okay.
And right now, that's mostly Randolfo and Penelope Bulnick because I'm doing a bunch of videos and stuff.
Okay.
But yeah, they look at every single one, and we do not allow things that are obviously dangerous into
Mhm.
our contests. Flamethrowers, Lichtenberg burning, um, just using a microwave in weird ways. Just there's so much stuff that we've seen over the years that we know like this is not okay, or
Mhm.
especially when it comes to like sharp projectiles or anything that's gun like, we have to be really careful with that too, like especially because we went in a more education
Mhm.
focus the past few years. So yeah, we are doing a very basic sort of safety check,
Okay.
and then if it gets through from us, like, if we think it's okay, normally a community member will flag it and just be like, "What the hell are you guys doing?" And then we'll take
Okay,
it down.
okay.
Because, yeah, I mean, we are all pretty much jack of all trades. We know
Mhm.
a little bit about everything, but there's some stuff that we're gonna miss.
Right, I've seen
Um,
there was a
yeah.
time, and the reason I ask is because I don't know if you remember this, like, about it was about 6 or 7 years ago. there was this crazy trend when air conditioners, for some reason, were in very short supply, and people were making these dry ice and fan, in
Mhm.
a cooler air conditioners.
Yep.
And I remember I was watching one of the science YouTubers, and he goes, "Well, that's a great way to asphyxiate yourself." And I started thinking, I'm like, "Oh, wow, he's right." Like, if you're just blowing dry ice around in an enclosed area, yeah, that's not particularly smart. And but I didn't know that until somebody said it. Like, I didn't think of it.
Mhm.
Obviously, and when somebody points it out, you go, "Of course." But
Yeah. Yeah. We let our community do a lot of that stuff, like,
that's good.
especially, like, if something goes in the newsletter
Mhm.
and it is not safe, people will let us know for the next year. Like, it's just gonna be all over there, and some of the people are nicer than others.
Sure.
Some people are very great and being like, "Hey, it's really awesome that you took the time and energy to do this, but I have some suggestions." And some other people are just like, "You fucking suck." And it's that's just, like, all they have to offer. So yeah, our community is really great at, like, letting us know when something is wrong. And then, yeah, we just kind of use common sense because we've seen so much sketchy stuff. But like you were talking about with like a chair made with thumbtacks, that is something that, yeah, we would just let up on the site if it was
Mhm.
documented well enough. And yeah, we just let the community talk about it in the comments because
Gotcha.
I don't know. It's a fine line to tread because we don't really wanna moderate that much, but
Well,
we do wanna
that's
make
kinda
sure, that
right.
people are safe.
You wanna have a you wanna have a light hand, or as light a hand, because
Mhm.
I was thinking more along the lines of, like, are you worried about, liability issues or anything like that, It's like that's why I was wondering, because the longevity of Instructables is remarkable. Like, that
Yeah.
site, I feel like that site's been around as long as, like, websites have been around. It's
Yeah,
just
2005 was when it started, yeah.
which makes sense, because that's around the time. I mean, I was already on the internet at that point, but I feel like that
Mhm.
was when the internet really started, like,
Really
everybody was on the internet. Yeah.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, it was so busy back in
2005.
the day. It's
It's an
crazy.
adult. It's 18.
Yeah, right? Yeah, we got our, like, 15-year staff hoodies, a few years ago, and that blew my mind. It was just
Wait,
like, "Have we really?"
have you been there since the beginning?
I've been posting on the site since the beginning, but I've been
Okay.
working there since 2012. So a
Wow.
little over a decade, yeah.
That's fantastic. It must be a hell of a place to work to stay there for 10 years, 12
I
years.
mean, yeah, it's just I don't know that I would have many chances to have this amazing creative job.
Mhm.
So I just want to hold on to it as long as I can because it's like before this I only worked retail and
Mhm.
my degree is in public health, which is not quite as fun. So it's just like I'm just going to cling to this for
Especially
as long
now.
as I can. Oh yeah, especially now. Oh my god.
Yeah, I imagine when Autodesk took over, it was a little bit like, "Uh-oh." Like, there had to be that moment where everybody was like, "Oh god, they're gonna kill the vibe of this place." Like, everyone had
Yeah.
to think the Death Star was eating a planet here.
So funny enough, I actually came to start my month-long artist in residence in Instructables the day that it was official that Autodesk bought us. So,
So you never knew it beforehand, really?
I didn't well, I had been out to intern for like a week in I think
Mhm.
2008. But yeah, I had never actually like worked there until Autodesk had taken over. And so yeah, I remember Eric and Christy, who were the Instructables bosses then, picking me up at the airport and telling me everything. And yeah, the vibe in the office was a little nervous. People were a little quiet. They didn't really know. But we went to a party that night at One Market, which is the main San Francisco office.
Mhm.
And everyone was so excited about us. They were so happy that we were there and just like, excited of all the possibilities that we had just because we were the creative people and we were the people that actually made things. And we all kind of turned around after that. Like, Carl Bass was the CEO then. Great guy. I love that dude. We used to all call him Uncle Carl because he would like finance the craziest stuff, the craziest projects for us to do. But yeah, we were like a novelty for the first few years, and like, I don't know, it went really, really well. And when we stepped back from making things and we went into sort of an education focus, things were different then. I think
Mhm.
that was actually the harder sort of thing to vault just because, we aren't educators. And
Right.
it was such a weird and like very specific sort of website for makers.
Sure.
So we kind of, yeah, we had to change a lot of what we thought and what we wanted as far as content. It's not like we could do LED pasties or a baby flask anymore. Like people are probably not going to be into that. So yeah, I think we it was really great at first, because we had more money for contests and we had official rules. Like we had all this nice legalese that we got from Autodesk and like we're able to upgrade a lot of our processes with that. So yeah, while we were scared, I think it turned out really, really
I
well. And
I've
yeah,
been continually surprised at, Autodesk has been around for literally forever. Like, it feels like
yeah,
they're one of those companies that, when you become aware of technology, like, everyone's heard of AutoCAD. Granted, in our
mhm.
community, more people have probably used Fusion 360, but
Oh yeah,
everyone's
definitely.
heard of AutoCAD, like, everyone and their brother. And you associate a company with one product and you see them doing
Hmm.
this crazy branching out that they're doing and you're like, "Oh my god, they're becoming this tentacled machine that's like, they're buying up all
Yeah,
these great
yeah.
little apps and integrating them into Fusion 360 and they bought up Tinkercad and they bought Instructables and it's like, but then when you start to see it all come together, you're like, "Oh, this actually all kind of makes sense."
Mhm.
Like, they want the community management and the community management experience of Instructables to kinda help make Tinkercad better, and they want
Yeah.
Tinkercad's ease of use to kinda influence Fusion 360, and they want some of
Mhm.
the features from Fusion 360 to make Tinkercad more than a toy that's used in, like, kindergarten classroom,
Yeah.
and you start seeing it all come together, and it's like, wow, they've just kind of integrated all their products in such a neat, cohesive way. It's kind of impressive because big old companies don't tend to do that very well, and Autodesk
Mhm.
seems to have done a pretty good job of it. I mean, I say that now. It's just so I can put a timestamp on that. It's June 27th, 2023. If that
Just in
changes
case.
in a year, I don't wanna hear it, but, as of right now, they seem to be doing a pretty good job.
Well, and honestly, I think we keep doing a good job just because we have a new chief marketing officer, and she has very modern views on what we should be doing.
That's
And
great.
yeah, I feel like things are getting better and that there's going to be more of a focus on early education, for
Mhm.
Tinkercad, because right now we don't really get any focus on us. We're just kind of the miracle product
Right.
that Autodesk has that everybody knows about, but they might not necessarily know it's Autodesk.
Sure.
So yeah, I'm hoping we're going to keep moving in the right direction because she definitely is a lot more savvy about the image that we want to give off and how we want to present ourselves, because we have kind of been that stuffy tech monolith for a
Sure.
really long time. So it's like I'm excited for it to be a little more interesting because yeah, it's been kind of lacking the past
Even
few
with
years
all
of marketing.
Even with all the acquisitions and stuff, the company doesn't feel like Darth Vader. It doesn't
Yeah.
feel like it's like ending tomorrow, and I guess that's gotta be a good thing, like, you're working there and everything's kinda okay. It's kinda nice where it's not like, there are bigger companies where it's like, "Oh, yeah, no, we're about to lay off 25,000 people," and it's like, "Oh," but that's not it's good. I'm very happy it's working out for the people that are there because in the interactions I've had over the years with anyone that's been connected to any of the products on any of the on any of excuse me,
Oh no.
on any of the product lines, it's always been like, yeah, no, we like working here and we're excited about the products that we
Mhm.
make. No matter what product they work on, they're excited about the product they make. So
Yeah, yeah, that's definitely the one, like, really good thing about my job is just that,
mhm.
yeah, I'm very, very, very positive about Instructables and Tinkercad. I mean, it's hard not to be,
Sure.
really, because, with Instructables, we have, like, such a big community of people who've been posting for years, and I just, like that just is very exciting to me that people wanna share things for free still. And then with Tinkercad, just working on social media and seeing all the kids using it,
It's
you know,
always
like
kids doing
kindergartners and
crazy
first
things.
graders. And I'm just
Yeah.
like, oh my God, they're 3D printing in their classroom. It just makes me so happy.
I love it when you watch. It's always the same kind of vibe. You watch, they show, every every news channel B-roll of 3D printing in education. They show a 3D printing farm of enclosed printers because every
Yep.
school has some kind of enclosed printer, and then they pan to kids moving a mouse and staring at a screen, and then when they show the
Mhm.
screen, it's Tinkercad. Like
Yep.
every time, it's always Tinkercad. It's like, wow, they have
Yep.
cornered a market that other people just didn't even, like, consider. So
Yeah, and I really just think it's because I don't know how much you know about like the Tinkercad features for teachers, but we've basically so a lot, like Fusion 360 and a lot of the higher level softwares, they make it a lot easier for you to sort of run a class as a teacher. And so we've
mhm.
brought that into Tinkercad. So yeah, they can have classrooms for all of their different classes and they can assign different projects and they can like I don't know, we've just tried to make it very easy and streamlined so
Oh,
that
wow.
they aren't having to spend forever setting things up.
I'm looking at that now on the website. I had no idea this exists. That's actually pretty brilliant. That's
Yeah.
I remember my ex-wife brought, she's a teacher in the Bronx, and she brought, 3D printing pens to
Oh,
school to
nice.
do a lesson with the kids. So I had the Monoprice, the cheap Monoprice 3D printing pen, and she's like,
Mhm.
"I'm gonna bring it to school and just see if the kids enjoy it." And I was like, "Well, you know what? They're $30. Let's get another one so at least there's 2." Because
Yeah.
it's hard to deal with just 1.
Mhm.
So she brought home one of the kids made me, he made a Dominican flag for me as a thank you
Oh,
for
that's so
sending
sweet.
the printers with Miss Beth. That's what I was told.
Yeah.
And she's like, "I was told I have to give this to you because he was really happy that he got to play with a 3D pen." And
That's
I'm
so
looking at this thing
awesome.
going, "A kid made this? Like, I can't get this pen to do anything."
Yeah.
And you start seeing what these kids are doing, and it's like, it's amazing. They get so excited about it. And,
Mhm.
as much as kids tend to be screen focused and kind of disconnected in a weird way, they're not hopeless. They're not
No,
hopeless. Like, if
definitely
you
not.
just have to grab their attention. That's the one
Mhm.
thing. Attention is hard, and you have a very short window with which to grab it, but if you grab it, you got it, and you own it,
Mhm.
and it's very hard to lose it once you get it, so.
Yeah. Well, and I think kids these days are so much smarter than we were just
Mhm.
because they have so many different inputs all the time. Like there's so much information that they have that I don't think I would have at their age.
Yeah,
So yeah, I just feel like it's so much more challenging,
they didn't
which
have to
is
unlearn.
something that keeps me really busy at work. Yeah, thinking like how can I make this appealing and enticing to a
Mhm.
teenager? Like that is definitely tough. Like teachers are a much easier group to market to than teenagers.
100%. I was thinking this the other day, like, all the stuff that we had to unlearn to learn, like, I don't know how old you are, you don't have to tell me, but I'm 47, and for a 47-year-old person, like, I was born right everything has literally changed a million times over. Like,
Mhm.
society has had 3 revolutions just in the time I'm alive as far as technology and the way we do things and the
Yep.
way things exist, and luckily I'm into technology, so I kinda get excited by this stuff, so I dive in head first, but I know people my age that are just lost. Like, they don't know what to do because they can't unlearn, like, they want their rotary phone,
Mhm.
they when they those are my friends, and everyone listening to this has this 1 or 2 friends, they call you on the phone.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like, "Why are you calling me? Like, that's rude. Like, don't call me. Like, text me. Text me f or at least text me first and say, 'Hey, can I
Yep. Let
call?'
me know.
Let me
Warn
know a
me,
call is
please.
coming." It's like, "No, we're calling." That's what we do. We call each other.
Yeah, I am 38, so I same thing.
Mhm.
I sort of like graduated high school right when the internet was taking
Yup.
off and then like got completely sucked into that for my college years and then the economy completely defaulted and bowed out when I graduated college. So it's just, yeah,
That was
it's,
why. That was why. It was you.
whew,
It was you. They're
it
like,
might have been me.
"We got this Jesse person needs a job." Like, we got no,
Mhm.
no.
Very important. She needs all of the money from everyone and all of the jobs.
Just suck all
Yeah.
the oxygen right out of the room. There it goes. Yeah, I can only imagine what that must be like to like you're starting what you think is your, your adult life, and
Mhm.
your initial visit into the adult world is, "Oh yeah, the most colossal collapse of the
Yep.
economy in 80 years. Good job. Here you go. Find a job. Have a nice one. See you tomorrow."
Yeah, and that was why I ended up at Instructables,
Mhm.
honestly, because I really did wanna do something in public health. I mean, Kentucky, where I grew up, is really hurting for it. Like,
Mhm.
they're at the bottom of everything. It's just really bad, but I don't know. I was looking everywhere and all of the jobs I needed like 5 years of program planning experience and I needed
Mhm.
all of this stuff that I was like, I just graduated and I don't know how I get that. And yeah, so when I went to intern for like a month the next month, I pretty much like at the end of that, I was just like, Eric and Christy, if you would like me, I will move to California for you because I don't have any other prospects.
So
Yeah.
you said you started as an artist in residence there? Was that did I
Mhm.
hear that correctly? Wow. So
Yep.
that's so as an artist in residence, was that like a permanent position, or was it like a timed position where they were expecting you to be there for X number of years, or like how did that work?
So we were doing it for months. I think it was between 1 and 3 months for
Okay.
most people, and then you would get, like, a stipend of 1,500 a month, and they would pay for all your, like, tools and materials that you needed. So it was
Nice.
a pretty good thing because, like, I
Damn.
remember just being like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get paid twice because like, I had enough vacation time saved up at my job, and, like, I was just thrilled about that. Yeah, I was just like, "I get paid for this? This is amazing." Yeah.
Does it
So
ever does it ever hit you that like I really hate that I'm not doing anything with my degree? Because I know
yes.
I'm only saying that because I don't know of all the people I know, I think I know about 4 people who are actually working in their area of study from college, and they're
Yeah.
all bitter about it because it's like except for the fact that I have a college degree, there is no connection to what I did in college to what I'm doing in the real world. And
Mhm.
I always like feel like, oh, I feel so bad for you. Like I'm not bad, like, oh, I can't believe you did that, but more like, how does that feel? Like I mean, you had a public health is a big freaking deal, and
Mhm.
you're doing something that's completely unrelated. Like, does it ever hit you like,
Yeah.
why did I go through all that hell to get that degree?
Oh, yeah, all the time. I mean, well, and especially so my partner Tyler,
Hmm.
like, he doesn't have a college degree,
Hmm.
and he's, like, managing all of these, like, the 2 stores we have locally and doing so much stuff. Like, well, and I guess just because I know so many people, yeah, who didn't go to college, and
Right.
they're fine. They're doing fine. They went into the trades or they drive a truck or,
Hmm.
like, there's so many people I knew that they got along just fine. Whereas, yeah, like I struggled forever to pay stuff off. And it
Hmm.
was just like working full time, going to school full time. It was hell. And so, yeah, it's sometimes I think, maybe I should have just made more stuff in my apartment and dropped out of school. But I guess it's good to like have it to fall back on,
Sure.
like if I do ever get fired from Autodesk because I'm not leaving voluntarily. um
It's a hell of a
yeah, I could get
fallback position.
chess. Oh, I know, yeah, it would I'd probably honestly have to study a bit again because, like, I
Hmm.
would I would have to be, like, certified again and get back into it. It would definitely be, tricky, but at least it's a backup, I guess. It
Sure.
could be worse.
Absolutely. And, you got the podcasting thing, and you guys are making millions on the podcast, so
Oh,
that's
yeah,
good too.
yep.
I'm sure
Super
that
rich from that, yeah.
I'm sure it's,
Bought this house.
yeah, that's 3 millionaires every week on Clamp. That's what the M in Clamp stands for. Millionaires creating living and millionaire podcast. That's what it
Yep,
stands for.
it's true.
So
Could you
what
imagine? We would be so horrible to listen to, I think. If it was 3 millionaires on a podcast, that would be
I have a hard time,
unbearable.
I have a hard time, and it's funny because I was watching. I won't call the person out because I don't call people out. It's not what I do. But I was watching a YouTube video today, and somebody was talking about a very expensive equipment purchase. And it was just like, "Oh, look what I did. This is cool." And I'm thinking like, "Yeah, that's cool." And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, "Did you really pay for that?" Like, that's all I'm thinking. Like, I've seen, because okay, so there is one particular maker who I've talked privately to my friends about, and I was like, "Do you ever notice that that maker had one brand of tools? That was the brand. Own that brand, own no other brand, that's the brand." And then they stopped paying the bills, and the color of all the tools changed. And it's like, it's one of the things that I find so icky about our community, because there's a lot of I don't it's not the sponsorship. I don't mind, go get your money. Like, if there's money on the table, take it. It's yours. Like, put your hand out, cover it up, and slide it back to yourself. That's your money. Good on you. But I really, it leaves such a bad taste in my mouth when it's not so much in the moment, but in hindsight, you go, "Oh, you never really liked their tools." Because when they stop paying you to use them, you stop using them. So you never really liked them. You just liked being
Yeah.
paid to use them. There's so much of that in this community. It's
There really
unbelievable.
is, and I think that's why part of why I've stayed really just in the Instructables ecosystem, because I definitely do struggle with the more sort of um, optimized life view that YouTubers and Instagrammers tend to take with everything that they put out.
Mhm.
Because yeah, I do the same thing. Like, I'm watching a video and I'm just wondering, like, okay, so who sponsored this and who
Mhm.
paid for all of this stuff? And like, was this their idea or did the company pitch it? Because, I have so much experience through Instructables with sponsorship and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. I'm always thinking that. And then it sort of takes away from, I don't know, the reality that they're trying to
Sure.
show.
No,
It just
100%. And that's
yeah.
why, I don't, and it's funny because when I've talked to some people like, "Well, what do you have against sponsors?" Nothing. Nothing. I think sponsors are great. But I think when you pivot your whole ethos around this being the best, and then as soon as somebody else offers you a dollar, you take the money.
Mhm.
Maybe it wasn't the best. Maybe it was the ones that were paying the bills. There
Yeah.
was one person, I don't remember who it was, and I would give them credit if I remember, but they used to say, right at the beginning, this video is sponsored by Rockler. And you look at
Mhm.
every tool in the video is Rockler, but that's fine. That was every video was sponsored by Rockler. Every tool in every video was a tool that Rockler sold. I'm fine with that. Like, that's exactly what I want to see. I want to know. But now people are
Mhm.
so blurring the lines. Like, oh, my
Yep.
every tool's orange and black. Everything is orange and black. I have a rigid banner in the back, but don't worry, they're the best. Wink, wink. They didn't give me that banner.
Yep.
Wink, wink, wink. So,
Yeah, but well, and it's not even makers. Like, just makers, I guess I should say, because I notice other like dog accounts, like humor accounts,
oh yeah.
those people are doing this too. And yeah, blurring the lines, not being
Mm-hmm.
truthful about how they got it. And it's just, yeah,
Well,
it's too much for me.
I got I got a very I got a very dark education. So in my former company, we made consumer electronics, and I got a very good education in what it means to work with influencers
Oh yeah, I
and
can only imagine.
the questions. So there are questions like, we want to send the product to you. Okay, how much are you paying? Okay, fine. Obviously, you're supposed to get paid to promote my product. I have no problem with that.
Mhm.
That's the way this works, right? That's a fair arrangement. But then you start getting the other questions. Do I have to mention that this is sponsored? The hell do you
Mhm.
mean, do you have to mention it? I thought that
Yep.
was the default, and apparently it's not. So now you have to look at every single person that has a product in their videos and go, "Hmm, I wonder." Like, I
Yep.
wonder.
Yep.
There are some channels out there like Project Farm. He takes no sponsorships. Torque Test Channel, no sponsorships. They don't do sponsors of any kind. You can trust what they have to say. You can
Mhm.
trust some of the sponsored channels too. But man, I realized a long time ago that a grain of salt is one of the best tools you can carry around with you when you're
Yep.
watching stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, definitely. It's yeah. Some people just care more about their brand than actually showing you what they're really
Yep.
doing.
So when you're
Yeah.
when you're not being podcast famous and you're not being the queen of all things at Instructables, What do you do? What kind of stuff do you make? What do you do in your spare time? What does your maker life look like?
So it's been kind of lackluster for the last few years, honestly, to be like completely transparent. Um, just because, life
life,
gets hard
life,
sometimes and
life
happens, and
gets
then
in
you
the
don't
way
do
of a lot of
anything.
things.
Yeah. So, I mean, really, I would say that my major interests right now are embroidery and 3D printing.
Okay.
Um, I I definitely like I want to move up to Fusion 360. I've got sort of like an intro to it from one of my awesome coworkers at Autodesk, but I need to learn a lot more. And so I've been focusing on that. And then, yeah, just really wanting to get back into embroidery. I don't think that I will make it a business. Like, I don't know that I will be selling them anymore, but I just, I enjoy selling the patterns and I would
Mhm.
really like to get back into drawing and, making physically just because everything has been so digital for a really long time.
Totally.
And then beyond that, I do a lot of yard work. Anyone that's listened to Clamp has probably heard me talk about yard work. I am kind of addicted to it. We have 11 acres of land here.
Oh
And
my.
so, yeah, and I'm mowing it with a push mower, which is not great. It's like a Craftsman M140, I think, push mower.
You know what?
And
I guess if you're gonna do it, you know what? Get the workout, get the
yeah,
exercise,
that's how I
especially
feel
there.
about it. Yeah, Austin does not feel that way. He's like, "You should just pay somebody to do it." It's like,
I,
"No, I'm fine. I
I'm
like it.
not
It's fun."
surprised by that.
Yeah. But yeah, I do a lot of that because I'm trying to have more biodiversity in my yard. That's my new thing.
Okay.
So I've been cutting down a lot of the tall grass and running over all of the flowers after they bloom and dry out so the seeds go everywhere. And so that has been like my big thing for the past
Okay.
couple years. Which is not exciting, but I love it. Like I'll do it like I think yesterday, I mowed for 3.5 hours just while listening to podcasts. So, yeah,
Stuff
I
like
do
that.
that
I
a lot.
find stuff like that, I find stuff like that therapeutic.
Mhm.
I
Me
really do.
too.
Like, everybody in our community always jokes about how much they hate sanding. I don't hate
Mhm.
sanding. Sanding is the greatest thing in the world for just menial, no thought labor. Like,
Yeah.
mark it up with a pencil, put your podcasts on, and just sit there. Like, I worked on a project with Al at New York Woodworks. It was basically 6 days, 5 or 6 days of just sanding. That was all I did for 6 days was sand, and I didn't mind. Like, I didn't mind. Like, if I had more time and he wasn't 2 hours away, I would voluntarily just go and sand for him because it was just the
Yeah.
easiest thing in the world to do. It's like it's it's so great to be able to just zone out, know that it's a low consequence thing. Like, the world's not
Mhm.
gonna explode if you sand a little more, it'll look fine. It's wonderful. I love doing stuff like that. So, yeah, mowing for 3 hours while listening to podcasts, that sounds like heaven to me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Well, especially because it's like I can get my horror fix and my workout fix like all at the same time because that's normally what I do, to be honest. Yeah. God. But speaking of sanding, I do also like sanding, but I only really like it if I'm doing it by hand. Anytime I'm actually using a sander, I hate that vibration feeling that you get in your hands after a
Mm.
while and you just can't get rid of it. So it's like for me it's got to be like a sanding block or or I
I
don't
got
want to do it.
spoiled. I got spoiled. So Al has all Festool sanders.
Oh, nice.
I got
Yeah,
spoiled.
okay.
I
Yep, I
readily
got a
admit
crappy
that I don't
sander.
sand that long with my own sander because I have
Mhm.
two Ryobi sanders. But Al, no, Al has Festool sanders. And yeah, it's a very different sanding experience
Yeah.
when you sand with a very good sander. I under
Oh.
I never understood it. I never understood it. I was always like, how could you spend $300 on a sander?
Mhm.
Now I get it. Like,
Yep, yeah.
not only do I understand, I'm trying to work it into my own budget. I'm like,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I will definitely be upgrading ours before I do another furniture project. That is for
yes,
sure. Yeah,
yes.
I like vibrated my hands off doing we found this like beautiful vintage sewing table. It's probably from the 1960s,
Mhm.
all wood. Found it just on the street in Oakland. And I spent like the whole weekend sanding all the paint off and working on it. And I swear to God, I couldn't feel my hands for like 2 days. Like there's just like I was touching my fingers and just like, no, it's gone. I don't, no feeling, none.
I have I have a definite set of feelings around taking finish off. Like,
Mhm.
because one of the things, so the thing that we were working on, it was this white oak table. It was like 8-quarter white oak, so 2 inches thick, the top. It was 6 feet wide by 12 feet long.
Oh
It
my God.
probably the top weighed about 300 pounds. I'm not
I bet.
exaggerating this, by the way.
Jesus.
It Al and I moving it was not even possible. Like, we had to get he has a landscaping company. He had his people, the young
Hmm.
guys came in and helped us, took the
Yeah.
4 of us to turn it around to sand the other side. And that had to be one of the hardest things I've ever dealt. Yeah, no, I'm a podcast host. I can talk, everybody.
Got it.
What
Got it.
one of the
Words. Yeah.
hardest things I've ever dealt with was getting the approximately 52 layers of finish off this table.
Hmm.
And it got to a point where I was like we sanded a lot of it, but it was still deeply in the grain. So I brought my belt sander
Oh,
with
yeah.
like 40 grit sandpaper on it. And I was just slashing with the grain, so it didn't look
Yeah.
silly, and I was just slashing at it, and then went over everything again with 120, and it was
Hmm.
baby butt smooth when I was done with it. But taking off finish was brutal. Like, I
Hmm.
never wanna do that again. Like, I wanna do that chemically or, like,
Yeah.
aggressively
What I
mechanically
was just
from
about
now
to
on.
bring up. Yeah, I think next time I would try chemically at first,
Mhm.
just to see if it works. Because
Yep.
like, oh my God. Yeah, it takes so long if you do it right, at least.
You know what I learned? I learned that poly is very durable.
Oh yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. Well, and that was a lot of the like trouble with the table
Mhm.
because the top of the sewing table was painted this bright red and there were so many coats, but yeah, the legs were coated in poly and I just felt
Mhm.
like I was sanding those for days. It just
Yep.
forever.
We were very lucky. We were very lucky in that we were able to get the table apart. So, like, I brought my jaw horse up there, and that thing is amazing. Like, it took these big giant legs, and I just slapped them in the jaw horse and stop. The jaw horse, for those of you that have seen it, Triton makes them. They're called Super Jaws, but everybody else calls them jaw horse. And it's basically this thing where you throw something and you stomp on a lever, and it locks it in there. Like, it holds it like a
Mhm.
big, huge clamp. And it's an amazing thing to have in your shop if you do anything with large pieces of wood. And I'm just sitting there hogging material and hogging material I'm like, how deep does this finish go? And you just keep
Mhm.
going and going and going and going. And now when I was done, I ended up looking at it going, I don't feel like I did anything because it didn't look any different. And then you look at, like, I missed with side on one of the legs, and it was like, oh, oh
Yeah.
wow. Okay. Okay, there's hope. There's
Yeah,
hope.
yeah. See a little bit of the progress.
Exactly.
Make yourself continue going.
I feel like that's what keeps you going in a project, right?
Mhm.
When you hit, like, some kind of milestone where you can see you can start to see the project. I love when Grant talks about this because Grant and I are very similar in a lot of ways. And Grant Grant always talks about how when he's getting toward the end of a project, he starts to speed things up and maybe rush a little bit because he just
Mhm.
wants, like, oh, all right, now I'm at that pivot point where I'm pivoting toward the end, and, like, all caution goes out the window. It's like, yeah, no, we could totally do that. That'll be fine. Everything will be great. It's like that's when
Yep.
it's like, why do mistakes happen in the last 20% of a project? That's why, because of
Yeah.
people like Grant and me, because that's what we do.
Yeah, well, and that's why I always do things once before I document it because it's
Mhm.
like I'm just gonna let this be all the screw ups. So, like, yeah, if I get feeling a little wild and decide to rush everything, it's not the one that's like documented. Because, yeah, I mean, I would definitely do that too, especially because like for a while, I was posting multiple Instructables every week,
Oh,
and so
wow.
yeah, I would just get so hyped up about like getting something out and published that yeah, I was just blowing through everything at the end just to get it up and live because I wanted like the serotonin hit.
Well, I remember the first time this wasn't the first, no, it was the second time I finished NaNoWriMo, and you can sense, like, if you read the story's building and developing, and characters are getting their own chapter, and it's really
Mhm.
good. And, for those of you that don't know, NaNoWriMo is a National Novel Writing Month. It's 50,000 word novel.
Mhm.
And I think around 45,000 words, I was done. Like, I was like, I am so done with this whole damn story. And I pivoted from strong character development to everyone dies. It's like, it's just easier. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, I just want to get my little medal in my profile. That's it.
Oh my god, yeah, that is part of the reason why I've never attempted that. Because I have an English minor and, like,
Hmm.
was really into writing when I was a kid,
Hmm.
and I have a lot of friends that will do that.
Hmm.
But yeah, the pressure of the length and the amount of time, and it's too much, and I just know that, yeah, I would end up being like, "I'm just gonna finish it, I don't fucking care anymore." Like,
Do you
it
know
would
how I
get
got
sloppy.
Do you know how I got through it though? Seriously, like the way so when I was looking at it as a thing I wanted to do, I was looking at the task, and right, and the task is 50,000 words in 30 days. So, okay, break that down. It's 1,633 words a day. That's not a lot to write. Like, especially if
Mm,
you're a writer of a writer mindset, it's really not. It's not even a full chapter. Like, unless
yeah.
you're writing really short chapters, it's not even a full chapter. It's about maybe half a chapter, I would say.
Mhm.
If you're really, really of the idea that you want to finish it, what I did, I broke it down into 30 1,633 word chunks. And I had a spreadsheet, and every day it
Oh,
would
that's
say,
nice, like a
day one,
progress.
yes. And
Yeah.
when you see the progress, that's when it stops feeling like an impossible task. And I
Mhm.
was like, "Oh, okay, this is doable." I ended up finishing the first one. I finished it on the 20th of November, and by the finished. I crossed the 50,000 mark on the
Yeah.
20th of November. By the 30th, I had 61,000 words.
Oh my
So,
god.
I had an extra 11,000. It looked insurmountable on the 1st of November, and I did an
Mhm.
extra 11,000 words because it's just those little milestones, like you hit one, usually on the first day or two, and everybody that does will tell you the same thing. Like the first day or two, you'll hit that 1633 and then some. I
Mhm.
hit 4,800 or 5,000 on day one.
Oh,
And once you get
wow.
that lead, you start getting really excited. Like, I can really
Mhm.
finish this fast. And the first one, I finished it in, essentially 23 days. So, but yeah,
That is cool.
I would say try it, break it into smaller chunks. Don't look at it as one big ball. Look at it as a lot of
Mhm.
smaller pieces, and I'm telling you, it's going to feel a whole lot more doable. And what I did for the last one when I did it, I actually just wrote some character outlines. That was all I did. I didn't do
Mhm.
anything else. Like, who are the characters in this book and what are they about? And I didn't do that for any of
Yeah.
the others. And
This is what I wanted to ask also, like, yeah, are you preparing a lot of in
first
advance
one,
to write?
first one, I wrote literally off the cuff. It
Oh,
was just a
wow, okay.
story that developed. I started with a premise that
Mhm.
there was this girl who was a blogger, and she ended up getting cyber stalked. And it just went forward from there.
Yeah.
And it just was like, where the story goes, it goes. We'll figure it out. There are
Mhm.
three major plot holes in the book, and I am perfectly fine with it. But I was so
Yeah.
happy with this is how you could tell a noob. Like, everybody says act like you've been there. I didn't even act like I'd been there. I finished it. Do you remember Lulu? So
Hmm.
Lulu was a before Amazon did Kindle Direct Publishing, there was
Mhm.
Lulu, and Lulu
Oh,
was
okay.
what people would call a vanity what do they call them, vanity publishers or vanity
Yeah,
presses?
vanity publisher, yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, I can get my book published. Oh, and I can get an ISBN for it. So I always brag, like I'm very excited that my name is in
Mhm.
the Library of Congress.
Oh, yeah,
It's
yeah,
like,
I've always wanted an ISBN number, and
there
I'm
you go.
very jealous of the friends I have who have them, because 'cause I've got quite a few at this point, yeah, who have written books, and it's just like, "Oh, I need one of those."
It's kind of a cool feeling. I mean, now it's even easier to get because KDP makes getting published. It was a process. Like, I had to
Mhm.
take the Word document and format. Like, imagine sending a Word document to a publisher now. Like, they'd be like, "What are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
get in InDesign, dumbass, and start designing the
Mhm.
pages the way a book is supposed to be done. Like, what are you doing?"
Yeah.
And in fact, on the back of it, because I didn't get to design the covers, I just had to do generic graphics for the front and back
Mhm.
cover and the spine. and you don't get to really tell them where they put the barcode. The barcode goes in a certain spot, but they don't give you
Mhm.
guidelines. The barcode is covering part of my picture.
Oh, no.
It's hysterical. It is absolutely hysterical. But you know what? It's such a cool accomplishment to be able to tell people you did
Mhm.
it. So all this to say, you since you have that tendency to be a writer anyway, I think you should totally try it. You definitely could do it. It's not as hard as you think. I've seen people write some wild, wild stories that, they ended up I had one friend who wrote, did the 53,000 words that he did, and then he turned it into a full-on novel and sold it, got it published and sold it. So it was like, because
That's so
that
wild.
just uncorked the story, and he just
Mhm.
filled in where he needed to flesh it out more to make it a more proper novel. So if you have an idea, that's not a bad way to develop it, even if it
Yeah.
just breaks the wall down and gets you going.
Well, it might just be the way my brain works too, because
Mhm.
when I think about writing, I am very sort of structured, and it's like, okay, so what am I going to write about? All right, what are going to be the big story arcs? Who are
Mm,
the characters? Like, I need to do an outline before I
yeah.
really get into it. I really have to have more of a plan. Like, I get a little nervous if I just jump into something and I'm trying to just sort of go with it.
Wait,
It's
you get
hard.
nervous when you jump into something, Jesse? That's such a surprise. Like, it's out
Yeah.
of character for you.
Yeah, it's real bad. It's definitely one of my biggest flaws as a person. I can't do it, but, I'm trying.
What the irony of somebody who does what you do, getting like, new skill or new thing nerves
Mhm.
is definitely the irony is very, very thick.
Oh, it's so bad, and I really wish I could say that it's gotten better over the years, but it still
It
really
never
hasn't.
does.
Like, it just doesn't. I wish I could say that I'm, like, really comfortable on camera and I feel good about it, but no, I don't. It's weird.
Well,
It's
so
just
I always
Ooh.
tell people that, I always tell people, anyone that's met me, it's hard to believe. Nobody believes me when I tell them this, but I'm sorry, it's just the way it is. I am super introverted and painfully shy. I am one of the
Mhm.
most painfully shy human beings you ever meet. And I've had people go, "Well, then how are you so comfortable in crowds?" I'm like, "Wait, what makes you think I'm comfortable?"
Yeah.
Well, you have these, your conversation, you're easy with people, like it's fun, you're having a good time. I'm like, you know how much work that is? You know
Mhm.
how exhausting it is?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
this past weekend, I met my fiance's most of her friends. And by the way, yes, use the word fiance, everybody, but yes. Um, I met my fiance's most of her friends from around the country came to New York for the weekend. And I got to meet a whole bunch of people, and they're awesome. Like, her friends are fantastic people. We had an amazing time. It was great. Yesterday evening, I was exhausted. I mean,
Mhm.
just tired, and not tired because they're bad people, not tired because it's difficult to hang out, because I mean, come on, it's hanging out. Grab a drink, you know, tell a joke or two, have a good laugh, pay attention to what everyone's talking about, engage when you need to. Everything's fine. And like I said, they're awesome people. So it wasn't that it was work, it's just to be on when
Yes.
your tendency is to not be on. It's
Mhm.
like, I don't want to do this. And it's not because I don't like you. It's because my brain doesn't want to do this all day long. It's like, I need
Yeah.
away time.
Well, and I think I'm struggling with that a lot more now because I've been working from home here in Colorado for 7 years now,
Mm,
which is wild to think about, but I went to an offsite, in April to Portland because we have an
mhm,
Autodesk office there, and I knew almost everyone, had worked in person with almost everyone. They were like 2 new people that were in our group. Yeah, I went back to my hotel every night and just felt like I was going to die. I was so tired. Like, I couldn't even make words with my brain. I was just completely wiped out. It was just like there was nothing left that I could give. And, those are people that I didn't have to prepare myself mentally for and get all
mhm.
all psyched up to go out and do it. So yeah, like new
Over
people is very scary.
overcompensating introverts don't get enough credit. They don't,
No.
because the ones that are good at it, you never know. Like,
Yep.
"Oh, he's so comfortable with everybody. Yeah, because he is really trying to be comfortable with
Yep.
everybody." Like,
Or in my case, it's like, yeah, 'cause that's my job. Like,
Right,
every
exactly.
time, yeah, that I've worked a convention or a maker faire, I always get compliments on how good I am with people, but, inside, I'm just like, "Oh my god, I'm going to die. This is so horrible. Please let
I'm
me just go back to my hotel room," like, the
I'm
whole
so t
time.
I'm so all I think in a lot of situations where there's a lot of people around, all I think repeatedly is, "I'm so tired." Like, that's
Mhm.
all that's going through my head, like, people are like, "What are you thinking?" I'm thinking I'm freaking tired. That's what I'm thinking.
Yep,
I'm really, really tired. It's
yep. I want
hard.
a snack, and I want a nap. Like,
Exactly.
I don't
But
wanna be here.
I will say this, and one thing that I'm glad I'm able to do it because I do have friends that are not able to do it, and it's a hard thing for them to deal with too, because when you're getting a group together to do something, I have one friend who, her big theme is I'll don't bother making plans with me because I'm just gonna find a reason. Either I'm either gonna say no or something's gonna come up last minute, so don't even bother.
Yeah.
And it's nobody judges her for it. It's just not her thing. It's not, you make
Mhm.
one-on-one plans, she's all in, like, let's do this. You make group plans, yeah, it's probably not happening. You should probably just make the group assume the group will not include her and everything's gonna be fine. No, you won't be offended. Nobody's gonna be hurt by it. Which
Yeah,
again is
I am
weird
the
because
same way.
you're in community management, you bump elbows with a lot of
Mhm.
people. I do a podcast for 90 minutes a week where most of the time I'm talking to complete strangers. And
Yeah.
it's like, yep, but here we are just doing our thing. And like, you would never know if I didn't tell
No.
you.
Yeah, it's so funny though. It's like if anybody asked me to make phone calls at work or do something like that,
Oof.
I
Oof.
would fall apart. They would instantly realize what a failed human I am, that I'm
We,
really good with words.
we had a moment in the last company I worked for where the we were doing outbound calls for basically for customer service purposes. But they
Mhm.
weren't to customers, they were to our clients. We had a product that we had put in all these retail locations and we were calling these retail locations to make sure the product was working, that everything was okay, if they needed any additional consumable supplies and whatever. And the job was get on the phone, call as many of these people in a day as you can. That's a simple job. I
Mm.
felt like it was torture. Like,
Yeah,
I wanted
it's
to die every day. I would put it off. Like, I knew luckily the first few people I talked to were very cool. One of them said, "If you're gonna call the stores, here's the times to call. Otherwise, don't call
mm,
at all." And I'm like, "Really?" He goes, "Yeah, because
yeah, that's nice.
this is when we're all busy." I'm like, "Oh, thank God." So I would schedule my whole day around it, and then I would sit there with my phone and the list and everything set up on my screen, and I'd have my phone in my hand, and I have my finger over the keypad and dialing and it's only the first one. Breaking the ice of making that first call was always the one that got me. Once I made the first call, it's like, nah, I'll call them all now. It's fine. But getting through making that first call every freaking time, every time, got me every time. But
Yeah, yeah, for me, it's every call. So, like,
you
the
have
last
that
job.
breaking the ice moment repeatedly throughout the
Oh,
course of the
yeah, yeah,
day.
it's like heart rate at, like, 130, and then it goes back down, and then the next call, it's right back up, you know? Like, cause the last retail
Mm,
job I had, I worked at a used bookstore, so we always had way more stuff than we could ever sell, and
mhm.
so my job for a little bit was to call schools, hospitals, daycares, that sort of thing, to see if they had kids that needed books, which is awesome. Like, you're
Mhm.
never gonna have people screaming at you when you're offering them something for free. There's really no reason I should be terrified of it, but, like, that was one of the worst times in my life working because I was just terrified every single time, and I just could not talk myself out of it. And, like, it's still like that with me because, like, I always have a lot of health problems, and just calling doctors, like, I swear I'm, like, giving myself a pep talk before every single one because it's just like, "It's okay. You're not gonna die. No one's gonna scream at you. It's okay." It's
So in
just
other words,
so
what you're saying
frustrating.
is your biggest torture moment is you go on the app from your doctor to make an appointment. And it says, "Please call. The app is
Mhm.
down for the moment for maintenance. Please call this number." And you're like, "Yeah, I guess I'll be trying the app again tomorrow." That's
Mhm. Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. Oh my god.
I'm
Yeah,
not bleeding
you
profusely right now. I could get away
yeah.
with an extra day. It'll
I
be
could wait a little
fine.
bit. Yeah. Oh
We
my
could
god.
triage this for a day. It'll be fine.
Yes.
Can you
Healthcare
believe,
is so
by the way,
stressful.
we have been talking for an hour and 5 minutes
Have
already?
we? Oh, I did. Oh my god. Yeah.
Look at
I wasn't
that.
paying attention to the timer at the top.
Isn't it great?
Yeah.
I love
It's wild doing this and, like, not coming in prepared, you
Mhm,
know? Like, on Clamp, we always have a topic, and I
mhm.
feel like I try to do a little pre-work, but I told myself, like, "Just chill out and show up, and it'll be fine," and it
I
was.
kn I have freaked many guests out when they're like, "What should I bring? What should I prepare?" I was like, "Nothing. Just bring you.
Yeah.
I'll guide you. We'll have a good conversation. Everything's gonna be fine." "Yeah, but what
Mhm.
are we gonna talk about?" Let's see where the conversation goes." "How are we
Yeah.
gonna do that for an hour?" Let me worry about that. It'll be
Yeah.
fine. That's the funny part of there's like 2 schools of thought. There's this where, I come in, I have nothing to write notes on. It's literally just me
Yeah.
talking. And then there are other people who have a very structured podcast. And it's interesting when you see that like everything works for different people. That doesn't work
Mhm.
for me. I don't have the wherewithal to prepare this show. Like I just don't.
Yeah.
Like I think the most I'll do is like when I because I get a lot of agent pitches. Like, I'll get people on that are people I've never heard of and then read the agent
Yeah.
pitch and go, "That's interesting. Yeah, I'll definitely talk to that person." And then I'm like, "Okay, I better do some research and figure out what the hell they do." It's like
Mhm.
just so I can talk to them about what they do. But, when it's somebody who I know reasonably well, like you, it's like, "No, we'll just get Jesse on." And I'm pretty sure I can find an hour's worth of things to talk to Jesse about.
Mhm.
And we did. So
Yeah,
that
we
work
did.
it works out really well. You know what else works out really well? Having a very interesting, super engaging thing of the week. And I have a suspicion, but, knowing your history, that it might be a horror movie?
I actually went DIY for this.
Wow! Okay, very good, very good.
Yeah, so this is actually a person that I have recommended on Clamp before.
Okay,
So some people might be familiar, but she goes by the Trans Handy Ma'am, which
okay.
I love so much. Her name is Mercury Stardust. And I can't remember now if she has 14 or 16 years of like building maintenance experience, but she's amazing. She does a lot of stuff on TikTok and Instagram. I think she might also have a YouTube, but I don't watch her there. But she does a lot of tips for people who are traveling or for renters where it comes to safety and things like that in your home and how to fix simple things, like plumbing or a hole in a wall, like really easy stuff. She's just, I don't know. I love everything she does because none of it is from a place of ego.
Mhm.
She's not doing this to make herself the expert. She's doing it to legitimately help. She answers people's questions and she's very caring when it comes to the trans and LGBTQ communities. So it's like, it hits all of my wheelhouses. I love everything about her. Yeah, I watch her videos even when I know how to do the thing, just
What
because I love
she
listening to
she's
her.
basically teaching she's no offense millennials, but she's basically teaching millennials all the stuff that they didn't ever
Yep.
learn how to do.
Yep.
Like
Millennial life skills.
That's great. I actually had a conversation with a millennial once, and I'm not making this up. Believe me if you want. I don't care. But I actually asked the millennials, like, "Do you know how to change a light bulb?" And they're like, "No, I call the landlord for that." I was like, "Oh my god, that you people really do exist." Like, and I don't even judge them. They just never. It was a skill they never had to learn. Like, I'm too in the back of my mind. I'm like, "How do you function not knowing how to change a light bulb?" But then it's like, again, it's not because they don't wanna know how to change a light bulb, it's because they've never had to know how to change a light bulb, so,
Mhm.
this is
Yeah,
exactly the
well,
kind of
yeah.
account.
And that is exactly what she always says. It's like, "You're not stupid for not knowing how to do this. You just haven't had the opportunity to learn yet."
Yep.
And I really love that.
We had a substitute teacher in high school. His name was Mr. Epstein. Mr. Epstein was a gym teacher, like an old school, probably about 5'6", probably about 260 pounds. Like, he
That
looked like
sounds like my gym teacher.
yeah, basically bald old man, nicest guy in
Yeah.
the world, right? And he had this very thick Brooklyn accent, and I ended up finding out later on that he was a teacher so long that my father had him at gym in his high school
Oh
on the
my
other side
god.
of Brooklyn when he was a kid because he knew who the guy was. He's like, "Oh, yeah, Epstein, he was my gym teacher." But and that's, by the way, how my dad talked, and that's how this guy talked. So he's sitting there one day. He goes, you know what the difference? You know, is everybody calls everybody stupid. You know, nobody's actually stupid, but there's a lot of people who are ignorant. Ignorant just
Mhm.
means you don't know. Stupid means you know and you don't care. You're not
Yeah.
stupid. You're ignorant. You didn't learn. It's not your
Mhm.
fault you're ignorant. You just need to learn. It's like this
Yep.
freaking,
It's
this
very true.
fat little old Brooklyn guy with his big old Brooklyn accent, just like he's got these profound life pieces of advice. But I think that actually fits his channel really well. So on Instagram, it's Mercury Stardust Tops TOPZ. And I will definitely have the link in the show notes. There's an Instagram account, there is a TikTok account, there is a YouTube. I mean, what a social presence.
Yeah.
448,000 followers on Instagram. Jesus
Well, and
Christ.
she's grown a lot because I feel like I started following her when she was like around 100,000. Because her TikTok audience, I think, is the major one,
Oh,
but yeah,
yeah,
she's
I'm sure
grown
because 'cause she's
so
gotten
much.
articles written about her on TikTok, so
Yeah,
let's say
well, because she just came out with a book also. Like, I think that is where like the new wave of traffic is coming from because she's in the Amazon bestsellers right now. So yeah.
2.4 million on TikTok.
Yeah, right?
My
Freaking
god.
crazy.
How about that? Good for her. Jeez.
Hmm.
Wow, so mine is another mine is another YouTube person. I have been following Toy Polloi, Toypolloi, for a very long time. I was telling Jesse before we started, he's one of the first people I ever really followed, subscribed to, watched every video of on YouTube. And basically what he does is he fixes vintage toys. Like he restores them, he fixes them, he does a lot of crazy repairs. He loves taking Lego pieces and using them to fix toys. I have learned how to restring the rubber band legs on GI Joes, how to fix Masters of the Universe figures. Like I watch this guy, I find it to be just pure therapy, just watching this guy
Hmm.
fix the toys of my childhood. Like first of all, it's really cool seeing how the toys of my childhood worked. That's cool by itself. But watching them get brought back to life is just so damn cool. And this guy is such an engaging. Plus, he's English, so it's like
Yeah.
he's got this very gruff but a nice English voice. We're gonna
Yeah.
fix this over here, and there's a little sort of this. We're gonna fix it like this, and it's gonna look amazing when we're done with it. That was more Australian than English. All right,
Yeah,
forget
to
it.
go Australian at the
they
end.
went a they went a little Australian for a bit. Um, I should start reading reviews and accents. That's never been done before. But no, but seriously, follow Toy Poloi if you're into. I've never seen him do. I don't think I've ever seen him do Transformers, but he does a lot of his toy fixes tend to focus on a couple of toy lines. Action Man, GI Joe, Mask, Masters of the Universe, and what was the other one? Star Wars, all the Star Wars toys, like the Kenner ones and others. And it's just a really cool channel. He's a really cool guy. He gives a lot to the community. He makes for some of the toys that he fixes. When he makes a sticker sheet for something he fixed, he actually scans the stickers and he makes a sticker sheet available on toypolloi.com. So you can, if you're doing the repair, you can do it yourself. And it's just he's just a really great guy and deserves all the follows he can get. He's fun to watch and does some cool stuff. So, and especially if you like old vintage stuff and well, vintage. Oh my God, the stuff from my childhood is vintage. Good God. Good
Yes.
God. What point have
We're
we hit?
old.
I know. Jesus. But you know who's not old? Actually, they might be old, but you know what? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. It's the people that support this show financially. So whether they're old or young, they are definitely supporting this show. And those people include Matthew Serio from Artigiano Serio, Big Al Schultz of New York Woodworks, Tori Decker of Tori Did It, Ed Swanson of Ed's Clocks and More, Jake Drews of Make with Jake, Megan Chris from Onyx Designs Woodwork, Christian Neary from Warren Works, Ken Madden from Mad K Studios, David Wood of DW Wood Builds, Dean Duplantis, Jeff Stein, aka A Weird Guy, Kim and Garrett from Kim and Garrett Make It, Rory Langefeld of RLO Woodworks and DIY, Robert J. Keller, Brian Arsenault, the Seven Hills Maker, Lars Coleman of Colorado Multicraft, Dave Bauer of Dave Bauer Art, Nick Birchtold of Birchtold Design Build, Donald LeBlanc of Fun with Woodworking, Ross Cave, Jeremy Spees, Grant Alexander from The Clamp Podcast, your co-host there,
Da-da-da.
Brad Harrison of Brad's Customs, and Billy Polton of Polton Projects. Thank you guys so much for supporting the show. I'm realizing as I'm having to take more breaths as I'm reading the list that the list just keeps growing, and it means a
Yeah,
lot to me
that
to
was
see
pretty long. That was
it.
awesome.
It's amazing. Like I always think like, oh, okay, I know the list grows when I have to change the graphic that people see
Mhm.
on the YouTube version. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh, I got to change the graphic for this episode because I added 3 new people this week. And I was like,
That's
wow, that's
awesome.
such a nice feeling. So thank you, everyone who gives me that warm, fuzzy feeling. But paying me is not the only way to get that warm, fuzzy feeling into my belly. You can also give me that warm, fuzzy feeling by sharing the show, giving it a review if you like it, or even if you don't like it. I just ignore the ones I don't like. But, if you don't like it, feel free to say that too. And if you have a moment, another way to support the show, and I mentioned it last week, and some of you really did, and I noticed the difference. So thank you. If you could watch the show on YouTube, even if you don't, watch the show, wink, wink. If you could let the show play on YouTube, wink, wink, for the full show, wink, wink, and let it go so that my watch hours go up, maybe we can get this monetized on YouTube, and that would be very helpful. So that's another way you
Yeah.
could support the show. Watch it on YouTube. I'm not saying don't download it. Download it, listen to the audio version, of course. But wouldn't hurt to put it on YouTube and just, you know what? Here's what you do. Before you go to work, put the Digitally Creative Podcast playlist on.
Yeah, I was gonna say pop the playlist in.
Exactly. Hit play and then go to work. When you come home, all the episodes will have played. Well, no, actually, unless you're working a 40-hour day. No,
Yeah,
but
that would be a while.
yeah, a lot of those episodes, those watch hours are going to tick right up. I'm only partially kidding, but I would appreciate it if you would watch the show on YouTube because the video episodes are there and you get to see cool things like Jesse's background, which is really awesome with all the embroidery hoops that she's made over the years
A giant tree.
and a giant tree.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's like you set this up for recording. It's
Mhm.
amazing.
Yep. Don't want people to see my ugly closet doors
I
and
was
the
going to
mess
ask
behind those.
I was going to ask, do you have a standing desk?
Yep.
Okay. I thought I was like, "She moves so freely in her chair," and then I realized, like, dumbass, she's
Yeah.
standing. That's why she moves so
Yeah.
freely.
Yeah, I have a really hard time sitting because 'cause I'm a fidgeter,
Mhm.
so this just works out better for
Wait,
everybody.
if I could only show and maybe one day I will take a picture of all the fidgeting things that I have that I keep out of sight of the camera. You have no
Mhm.
idea how much fidget stuff is here. Like, no idea. It's a pile of fidget real
Mhm.
Okay, Imma show you one of my favorites. This is one of my favorites, and I can't touch it during the show. This is I forgot what it's called. I think it was called the key clicker,
Yeah, I
and
was
it's just
about to ask if that was cube caps.
yes, it's a bunch of mechanical key caps and some Cherry MX switches, and
Oh
satisfying,
my gosh, yeah.
so satisfying. But if I sat here doing this on the podcast,
Mhm.
everyone would lose their freaking mind. I love this thing. It's one of my
Yeah,
favorite fidget things.
that
The other
looks
one
really fun, actually.
oh, here's one. Here's a classic. You'll remember this one. Remember when these were really popular?
Oh, yes.
This is the
We had
real one, by the
so
way.
many 3D printed versions of that,
Mhm.
yeah, on Instructables for a
Yep.
while.
It was really funny because I ordered this on Kickstarter, and while I was waiting for it, I was like, "All right." Oh, and I saw the cheap Chinese knockoffs started showing up on
Mhm.
Amazon. I'm like, "You know what? I'm gonna see how good the knockoffs were." And I got one knockoff that was actually really, really good, and I was very excited about it. I was like, "This is good. I'll keep this, and whenever the other one comes, it comes." Then I got this, and I was like, "Wow, the real one is so much better than the knockoff ones." But
Yeah,
yeah,
I bet.
this is a problem. But again, another one, like, if I sat here doing this,
Mhm.
everyone would lose their mind. So I don't have any quiet fidget toys, so I just keep them aside, but yeah.
Yeah, I just push everything back on my desk because I wanna touch things. Like, I have because I have so much stuff. Like, I've got a pin of thing like, I just there's so
Scissors
much stuff I
scissors
could mess
scissors are
with.
my one of my favorite fidget toys. Like, I had a pair of
Yeah.
scissors on my desk at when in my old job. I never used them. They were literally a fidget toy. I would
Mhm.
sit there just going like this.
It's such a satisfying noise.
It
Like, I
is.
really like it.
Well, especially when they're really new and the metal
Mhm.
scratches as they close, that
Yep.
sound. Oh.
Yep. That's why I love my metal pinking shears because of that noise.
Ooh.
Yeah.
This is why I don't make fun of people who are I don't get it. I don't fully get it. I understand it. The ASMR people, I always find them a little weird. but I
Yeah.
also understand it a little bit, like, because there are some things that are just super duper satisfying, and that's like
Mhm.
that sound of scissors opening and closing, that oh,
Yep.
love
So
it.
good.
Ah, well, we could talk about the sounds that satisfy for the rest of the show, or I can let Jessy go because I grabbed her right after work, which was very kind of her to offer. We actually were scheduled for Monday. I was like, would it be okay if we did Tuesday afternoon, evening, whatever? She's like, yeah, no problem. So as we're recording this, it's June 27th. This episode's releasing June 28th, and it's 8:30. You know what that means,
Oh my
don't you? I
gosh.
got a lot of work to do.
Yes.
So I am
Yes,
gonna punch
it
out,
does.
but I'm not gonna punch out without saying thank you so much for coming on. Thanks for being flexible with your time, by the way. I really
Yeah.
appreciate that more than anything else. Why don't you tell people where they can find more of you and learn more about what you do and more of the Jessy Ratfink experience?
So I am really only on Instagram. You can find me at Jessy Ratfink on there.
Okay.
If you're interested in my embroidery work, I have an account on Instagram called Making Jiggy. So you can check that out. I have a ton of followers and never post and feel really bad about it. um,
Holy crap, you do have a
and
ton of followers.
yeah, I really built it up. Like my business was booming for a while before I just fell off a cliff with it.
I'm following that
Yeah.
account.
Are you? Yeah,
How did that
I was
happen?
quite big for a while. And then yeah, Instructables, you can find me, Jessy Ratfink on there. I have
Okay.
almost 600 tutorials, mostly craft and leatherworking and sewing and cooking. So yeah, if you're interested in any of those things, I have tons.
Absolutely fantastic. Jesse, it's been an absolute pleasure and congratulations on the success joining the Clamp team. And those boys
It's
know how
been
much
so
I love
nice.
them, especially Grant. Grant is my brother from another Canadian mother. So I love Grant dearly. He's one of my closest friends, and I'm very happy that all of you have kind of formed this great little bond and kept that
Mhm.
show going because
Yeah.
it's hard when a host leaves. It's good to not try to fill the gap and just be you didn't try to be the next Morley.
Yep.
You were the first Jesse, and it's been
Yeah, it's
great
true.
and I've been really
I
happy
couldn't be
for
a
you.
Morley replacement. He's too charming and has great hair.
I was just gonna say
You know?
nobody can mimic the hair. It's the
Yeah.
hair. It's gotta be the hair. You know, with the
Yeah.
Michael Jordan commercials, with the Nike commercial, it's gotta be the shoes. Well, with Morley, it's gotta be the hair.
Yep.
As soon as he grew the
Exactly.
hair, he took off.
Yeah,
Not a
you might be onto something there.
Not a coincidence. I need to just grow my hair. Um, I got a lot of work to do, but I can probably make it
Might
happen.
take a little while,
It
but it'll
might take
happen.
it'll take a minute. I'll have wispy dreads. That'll be my new look.
Oh, I
And
don't know that that's 2 words that go well together.
let me tell you something. That isn't that worth enough to stick around with this shit show for another year. But thank you so much for listening, for watching, however you watch the show. And I will catch you next week. Oh no, I won't. Actually, no, I won't catch you next week because next week is July 4th and I'm not going to be around until Tuesday.
Oh, yep,
Um,
I forget.
there's parties galore, there's drinking a happening, and I
Mhm.
am not going to be in any state to deal with podcasting. So there won't be an episode next week. I might go into the archives and pull a good one and just repost. I think I am going to do that actually. I'll do that. But there's
Nice.
not going to be an episode next week. To hell with that. You guys can live without an episode for 1 week because y'all are going to be drunk just like me. So
Yep.
have a great drunken 4th of July, and I will be back again the week after. Enjoy, everybody.